Told podcast. I'm your host, and today we have a great one, y'all. This is episode number 87, How to Build a Brand with Bethany. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I'm glad you're on the show. I'm glad I finally got you. I'm so sorry. I be all over the place sometimes, so thank you.
No worries. It's summer. That's how it goes, right?
Yes, yes. Y'all, Bethany has a lot of things going on. Before we go into the topic today, Bethany, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience, let them know where we can find you at, and also let us know what you're doing and what you got going on.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram most of the time at Bethany Works Design. I own a brand and web design agency that specializes in psychology backed brands, which basically means that there is intention and meaning behind your brand and your visuals rather than just choosing your favorites. So that's what I do day in and day out. That's my full time. And then I also have a podcast called Unbreakable Brands where I interview CEOs and founders who've built really strong brands.
Oh, wow. You know what? God put you here today with me. I'm very spiritual. I really believe that you were supposed to. I really believe it was supposed to happen today because everything that you're talking about, especially about how to build a brand, which is what this episode is all about, you live it, you do it. Pretty sure you probably can do it in your sleep sometimes.
I'm in the
Yeah.
thick of it.
Can you tell us what made you make this? I guess I'm gonna say your dream job because that's awesome. When you say you're doing something full time, that means that this is paying the bills. Like
Yeah.
you're getting it done and you're living and you're doing the thing. A lot of things that people like me or somebody who really haven't took it all the way with their brand, tell us what made you get into it.
Yeah. So my entrepreneurial journey it was like a little bit of a roller coaster, like it is for everybody. It's never a linear straight line, I don't feel
Mhm.
like. I started getting interested in design specifically in undergrad. I went to get a BFA. I studied photography and design and art history, and I had four jobs in college because I had to pay for college. I still have student loans, don't you worry.
Right.
But as I was working those jobs, some of those jobs were in design assistant positions or graphic design positions. So I was working in industry at the same time, and so that was like where I started to build the skills, and then continued to build the skills. I went on to grad school to become a teacher and to teach art, specifically graphic design, web communications, what I do now, and photography and film studies. And in grad school, again, I worked multiple jobs. So I was still working in industry at the same time. And then I went into teaching what I do now. And I went in there with basically a shit ton of student loans. Hopefully I can swear on here. I know I swore,
No,
but it
you're
was a lot. It was a
fine.
lot of student loans. So I'm teaching a teacher's salary. I had student loans and I was like, okay, I need some way to start paying these off. And
Mhm,
so I started a side hustle of doing freelance work, like freelance writing. And honestly, at the beginning, I was just going to take like whatever came
mhm.
my way, you know? I was like, yeah, that's what you want to pay me? Great. And so I was doing freelance writing, freelance design. I was in like a personal finance community. I started a blog to talk about my paying off my student debt with my
Mhm.
partner at the time. And so our blog started getting noticed in the personal finance world. And that's how I got some of my bigger clients is they were like,
Mhm.
hey, I like how you write here, or I see you designed your website. Would you design one for me? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And so I did that freelancing kind of side hustle thing for about a year. And then I was like, I think I could take this super seriously and like replace my teacher paycheck.
Gosh.
I think I could do it for real. Like people make
Yeah,
money for real online.
yeah.
That's like an initial I guess realization or moment that like
Mhm.
I was like, I don't have to be in industry. I don't have to work for someone to do this thing that I'm really good at and know a lot about and have degrees in and I'm passionate about. And so um that is what led me here basically is like I was like, okay, in this year, I'm gonna teach full time, still teaching full time, and I'm gonna take my business super seriously, and I'm gonna see if I can replace my teacher paycheck. And so I did, and then I quit teaching in 2019 to take my business full time because I had replaced that, and since then I haven't looked back. So here I am now, 6 years into building my business. I've gone from being just me in my business to having a team, agency style. So like continuing to evolve it
Mhm.
over time. But that's what led me to be right in this spot today talking to you about branding. And in those 6 years, I've been able to work with like hundreds of companies and businesses and build their brands visually, their websites to help them become more successful too, which is really exciting.
Oh my gosh, Bethany, you have many hats.
Yeah, I've worn a few.
But I believe that that is amazing. I think that is something that a lot of people look towards when they're trying to find their purpose or trying to figure out what they want to do or trying to figure out the thing.
Hmm.
And you have grasped it, you've taken it to, like you said, super focused to the next level where you've replaced your teacher salary for your passion, dream, job. Not even a job, just your passion. Because
Yeah,
if it was a job, you probably wouldn't be doing it.
that's right. That's right. Let's be real. It's not like entrepreneurship is easy.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
you definitely have to be a hustler, and that's what I was gonna say. I was like, look at Bethany, she is a hustler. She was like, okay, I can do this, I can do this, and I can do this.
yes, exactly.
Yes, women definitely rule the world. I want to say that I think it's amazing how you use your brand to speak to people through your podcast, on different podcasts, even on different shows, or just getting in the room.
Hmm.
When you're trying to learn yourself and you're trying to grow yourself, I think that's just so important to know who you are and to be around people that can get you in the room. I always feel
Right.
like it's so much. I think that we're supposed to really be around people that can grow us, that we can learn from, that we can like show other people who are trying to find themselves how to get in those rooms as well. So I just commend you. That's
Thank
just what I'm
you.
trying to say. I'm like, oh
Thank
my
you.
gosh.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I think that's super important. And that's a part of building your brand too, is like
Mhm,
putting yourself out there in a
mhm.
way that feels good to you in whatever form that looks like.
Yeah, like, and then even I was gonna say, with you even being a teacher, that speaks to the heart. I'm always saying, "Oh, I love you, teachers." Every year when I meet the teacher, I just give her so much praise because I know you're dealing with different cultures, different atmospheres, people coming from all different types of backgrounds, and you can't judge certain people because everybody is different. We're all made
Hmm.
different. As far as with building a brand and how to build a brand, I need you. I need you after these services because I said to myself today, I have been on a roller coaster with Truth Be Told podcast. When I first started, it was like a passion, like a diary, but I wanted to tell people of how the mind works. I wanted
Hmm.
people to know that you can heal your inner child. What are some things before we go into this topic? What are some things that you can share with somebody who is struggling to find their purpose? What what was some things that you did when you first started off before you got to where you are today?
Yeah, this is a good one because I think this like dives into the personal part of thing of any sort of change, whether you're
Mhm.
transitioning into a different job or you're going into entrepreneurship. I don't think it really matters. Or maybe you just have a life change. Maybe you're becoming a mom or becoming a mom again or whatever it is. I think one of the biggest things for me was making sure that it was okay to find safe spaces to ask for help in and to ask for
Mhm.
support in because you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of us think like, oh, it's just going to be innate. I'm just going to know my purpose. Like I'm just going to know it'll just come to me one day. It'll just be aligned one day. And maybe that is the path for some people, but for me, in order to feel comfortable taking the risk to dive into my purpose because that's really what it is. It's risky to go for something that is just for you. I
Mhm.
had to first heal myself, like you
Mhm.
talked about, like heal your inner child and go back to working through a lot of things that I went through personally on so many levels. So therapy has been a huge part of it. I like talking about that. I think it's important, especially as women, that we talk about that. And having a support system in place. And then I also, like I shared in my story, I don't have a journey of like, A to Z or linear. I really wanted to make sure I could build this thing and have proof of concept before I went for it, because
Mhm.
that's how my brain works. And not
Yeah.
everybody is that way, but it was like inner healing, mental health journey combined with, okay, let's make this a reality for a year and give it my all as a side hustle while not sacrificing income or financial stability, because that is super important. I am not an entrepreneur is going to say, yeah, go for it, quit your job. Like, good luck, like, because I don't like that advice. And
Mhm.
I also don't think anyone can do anything. And that's why we're looking for a purpose. And so, um, I think that those parts were really important to have in place for me to like get where I am today. And then also to allow myself to change my mind. I mean,
Yes.
I some of my biggest clients were in freelance writing,
Mhm.
and I don't like it. I didn't love it. I was good at it. I could do it, but like it wasn't my purpose. It wasn't what I was meant to do, and it wasn't how I could help people best. And
Uh,
so I got to change my mind and
mhm.
like let that go. So, and I think that'll probably keep happening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to start off that way today because I think it's so important to, like you
Yeah.
said, have a community,
Mm.
be able to have a safe place. And actually, like you said, for you, it was like map out a plan. And it's funny because I'm listening to a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself who are successful and who are actually making money. Like, this thing is for real. It's not you're just on Instagram
Yeah.
scrolling. It's like, it's like you're making money. And one of the other entrepreneurs I spoke with, she said the same thing. She was like, no, I don't recommend quitting your job. Like,
No.
I don't know where that's coming from. But I don't really recommend it. It's save. And then if you feel you like you can step out there or whatever is best for you. And I'm kind of in that transition now, especially with truth be told, like this is my baby. When
Mm.
I made it, I was going through a lot of struggles. Mental health, I focus on strictly really mental health. I also talk about just real life conversation because I don't want to sound repetitious all the time. And so I'm like, okay, let's switch it up because I have so many different personalities. I'm a Gemini.
Mm.
So, yeah. So we just have so much going on sometimes. And so whenever I saw you, I was like, oh my gosh, she is an example of how to build a brand. She is the brand.
Thanks.
Some people, yeah. Some people really don't know that the brand is just everything. Your brand is everything. So I think this
Yeah.
is a good segment to, just go into the topic to explain when we talk about what is a brand, what is that definition or that meaning for you?
Yeah, I think we should start there for sure. That's so important because I think it's important to be clear, like you can absolutely run a business and not really pay any attention to your brand. You can even run a business and make money, but I do believe when you focus on your brand, your business becomes more impactful and therefore has an ability to make a difference in the world, but also like in the money you bring in. And so a brand is really what lives inside the minds of your customers, your clients, what I like to call your people, like the people who are there to consume your content, to be in your community, to be in your circle, to learn from you, to buy from you. And your brand lives in their minds. Your brand lives as, what they're texting to their people, what they're sharing. It's really a perception
Mm-hmm.
of your business, of you, however you end up positioning it overall. And so the good news with that is that you have the full power and capability to shape that brand, and you can do that by how you're positioning yourself in the market, and what I like to call like the three P's to building a successful brand, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. But you have full power over shaping that perception, and it's all about how you show up within your business, and a lot of it is tied to your integrity, your alignment, and your values. um, But really, like, a brand is not just your logo or the pretty colors or that part of things. That's very important, but that comes
Hmm.
later on, as you start to evolve overall.
I love that. I love how you said that you have to evolve overall.
Yeah.
Like you have to, like your brand is you. And you kept focusing on the mind. You kept talking
Mhm.
about, mindset. I know whenever you're having your clients and you're working through those different client consultations and deciding if this is a good fit, if you guys are going to go ahead and move forward, how do you know when you're going to move forward? Like if it's a really good fit for you? Because when I think of a brand, and I work for Chase, okay, I can say
Mhm.
that I work for Chase, but I don't want to be there forever. I really feel like it's just my vehicle to get in alignment with what God is having me do. And so, with truth be told, when I first started it, I said, well, and I'm using myself because I don't want to talk about nobody else's brand. I can talk about me.
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
But I'm using myself because when I first started, I was not myself. I was still kind of, not showing people me. My sister and brother really got on me a lot about it. They were like,
Mm,
"Ugh, you're so stuck up. Like, let them see who you really are." And I'm
mm,
like, I don't know if I really want to give them all of me. But when you talk about a brand and you talking about showing up for a brand, how do you and a client know if it's the right fit?
yeah.
Yeah, how do you know that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for me, like, I have my own criteria of
Mhm,
whether I'm gonna be able to serve them best, and it happens to be that, like, most folks who come to me have been doing what they're doing for at least a year or more.
mhm,
So with that, they've gone through some of those ups and downs,
mhm,
like quite a few hurdles. Like you said, that fear of like putting your full self out there is a little bit scary. So I'm not working with people who are fresh out the gate or just starting, which happens to be the case a lot of times because a lot of people are DIYing when they first start, which is totally normal and totally great. But I work with people who have tried it already and they have
mhm.
proof of concept, meaning
Okay.
they like feel good about it. They know that it's speaking to people. They know that this is a direction they want to take it, but where they may be lacking some clarity is like how to build it, how to like
Mhm,
bring it up to the next level, how to
mhm,
scale it, which
mhm,
I don't even like using all the marketing jargon, but that's really where they're at. And that's where I come in to provide clarity and alignment because and that's what building a brand is about because we are complex humans.
mhm.
Like you're a Gemini, so
Yeah.
extra complex. I'm just kidding. I'm a Capricorn, so I get to say that. But like we don't have to as humans
Mhm,
all the complex parts of us don't have to fit into our brand. That's like not how it works. And I think a lot of people feel that. What does need to fit into our brand is our personality, our integrity, and the parts of it that connect with our people that we serve. So I like to say, like, your people are at a certain point in their journey when they find you and your brand and personality needs to align with them right there. So one of the ways I do that is I use brand archetypes. So like a really easy one to recognize is the rebel brand archetype.
mhm.
We as humans at some point in our lives have all been a rebel. Like at some point we've embodied that. Like and Harley
Right.
Davidson is a rebel brand. Like you don't go buy a Harley Davidson unless you got a
No.
divorce or you're in a midlife crisis,
Right.
or like you're just like edgy
Yeah.
and that's like your brand, right?
Mhm,
And so if we align our brands which are tied to our businesses with two of those archetypes, we're meeting people at a very specific place, so that they feel seen and heard and can buy from us without confusion. And we're also at the same time protecting the other parts of ourselves,
mhm.
um, and creating a little bit of separation from the other parts of ourselves that maybe don't need to be in our brand.
Right.
Because the other thing we have to think about with our brand is not everyone's building a personal brand. Like
Mhm.
some people are building business brands and they might want to sell it or exit. And you can't do that if you're fully in the brand without like levels of structure and separation there. So I think that's an important thing to think about. And when people come to me, that's one of our conversations is like, okay, are you building a personal brand or business brand? And who are your people and how do you help them and take care of them? Okay, and then let's zoom in on that and figure out how we can make sure that everything you're putting out there in your messaging, in your positioning, and all of that is aligned to the those people you serve.
Gosh, I love it. I think everything you're saying is just it's just clicking. You keep talking about clarity and integrity and how it has to be in alignment with either your personal or your business brand. I think a lot of people need to hear more of this conversation because when we're on the internet and we're strolling and just either you see different types, it depends on what the algorithm is
Mm,
that's coming to you. You see people who are actually, wow, she's really making money. Like she's really showing what type of brand she wants to represent and what type
mm-hmm,
of brand that she's showing. You can always, and I always tell people too, the face behind the brand.
mm,
It definitely makes a big deal.
for
Before we
sure.
go into that, you were talking about the three P's.
Yes.
Let's go into the three P's. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I call them the three P's. It's the three P's to building a successful brand. So it's your promise, your positioning, and your presence. And what most folks do, and there's, it's just instinct, is they jump straight to the presence. And that's the last one because the presence is the visuals, right? That's your
Mhm.
website, your logo, your colors, your brand photo shoot. It's the sexy stuff, really. It's like the stuff that we're like, that's so pretty, or that looks so cool. And so of course we would jump straight to the presence, but I always say, like, take a step back and focus on the first two, and then your presence is going to be unstoppable. So the
Mhm,
first two are your promise and your positioning. And the promise is what you're offering to your clients or customers
mhm,
on repeat. And I like to also add to this, this isn't like, oh, I'm a copywriter, so I offer writing to them on repeat. Like that's the service. That's the end result. Or you're like, I'm a podcaster, so I offer them, helpful insights on my podcast and real life raw conversations.
mhm.
Yes, you do that, but like what's the end result for them? What's the transformation? What's the promise that they're going to pull from that real life raw conversation?
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what you can create. And once you
Mhm,
know that, then you have like, okay, every time I'm going to get on my show and talk, I know that I'm going to deliver this promise to them in some way or another with a conversation with someone else. And so getting to the root of that can be so helpful. And then once we have that, we can also think about positioning. And I mean, these things kind of overlap, right? It's not, again, nothing's linear. Everything has a
mhm,
little bit of nuance, but your positioning is like where you sit in the overall market, which does, require like, okay, who else is kind of in this space doing what I'm doing?
mhm.
Um, what does that look like? What are their pricing? And that's kind of the surface level stuff, but it's also like how am I going to sit in this space and do it in a way that not only feels good to me but also makes a difference, and I
Right.
think that's a big deal because
Mhm,
um it's important for you to figure out where you fit in the larger picture of
mhm.
your industry or world or what you're doing. Like I like to say we all exist in a context. So your brand sits there like, are you going to be a disruptor in your space or
Mhm.
are you going to be a ruler in your space? Are you going to be a caregiver in your space? Like how do you exist within your space, and so knowing that can be helpful. So once you know your promise and position, then we get to the fun part, which is the presence. It's like,
Presence.
okay, what's our message, what's our visuals, how am I going to plan my brand photo shoot? And that stuff can actually be informed by your promise and your position in the market rather than jumping to that without any clarity.
I love it. I love that. You said promise, position, and your presence.
Presence, yep.
The
Yeah.
three P's. The three P's makes a big difference. I can already feel like what you're saying to me, like, oh wow, it makes you go deeper.
Hmm.
What is the really, what is the end goal, what is the root? And I thank you for telling the audience that, including me, because that way people can seek that clarity, seek that integrity, because sometimes people can lead a certain way and it might not align with what
Hmm.
you're trying to do for that client.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I love the name of your podcast, like the Truth Be Told podcast. I think like that itself is speaking to something really important. And so you could dive even deeper on that for,
Mhm.
okay, what's my promise with this podcast? I do think you do have real raw conversations that like provide a lot of insight, but then what does that look like for the people listening over and over again? And then you
Right.
could start there.
Oh gosh, yes. I hear you. I hear the teacher coming out of you.
Yeah. Oh, do you? Oh. And your homework is.
I'm gonna get my pencil as soon as
Yeah.
I press in. But I do also want to know, as far as where you are right now,
Yeah.
what are some things that you can tell somebody, or what is something that you would have told 14-year-old Bethany? What would you have said to her, or what would you say to her today, seeing that she's trying to figure out and heal her inner child? What is something that you would say to her?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that you don't have to take on anybody else's responsibilities. Um, you know, you just have to figure out what your responsibility is in the world and act on that. And by doing that, you'll find out what you do best. And I would add to that too. Um, like there's a lot of stories we tell ourselves. There's a lot of stories that are handed down generationally through all kinds of things. Um,
Hmm.
and if you're telling yourself, "Oh, I can't do that. I might not be good enough," or "Why would I be picked for that promotion?" or "Why should I apply to that job?" I would just maybe stop and start questioning those things because what's the story you're telling yourself that makes that not possible? Because there are
Oh,
other people out there doing it. And so I think that was a big one for me was learning to work through some of those things of like, is this a story I'm telling myself or is this an actual truth?
I love it. I love it. I love how well, you should give yourself a pat on the back, because I love how you speak to your inner child, how you just told, 14-year-old who probably didn't know what she wanted, or could have been, wild, and or could have been an introvert. It
Yeah.
could, yeah, I think it's so important to represent yourself with clarity, with
Hmm.
integrity, especially these days, building online brands, and since we're
Yeah.
talking about how to build a brand, I feel like that's most important. Is there anything before we end the show today that you would like to share with the audience? Any jewels, any other insights? I'm really pumped about the three P's, so I can't wait to dive deep in that. But is there anything else that you would like to share with us today?
Yeah, I was thinking about earlier how you had talked about like the scroll. I think we can all get stuck in that scroll
Mhm.
really easily. Um, in a way, again, in ways that we start telling stories to ourselves about like, we've all seen the headlines. I made 60K in 3 days. You can too. And it's like, you know, and I would just say like, be careful about getting stuck in a scroll because there's a lot of really good marketing that is rooted in a successful brand like the ones like we talked about today, but there's also a lot of marketing that is out there for one purpose only, and it's not to serve you.
Yes.
So keep that in mind and don't let that be anything that stops you from taking the next step in whatever it is that you're pursuing.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. And tell the audience again where we can find you at your website,
Oh yeah.
everything.
Yes, you can find so bethanyworks.com and then Bethany Works Design on Instagram. I'm on TikTok just as my name. It's my personal account, so it's Bethany McCamish. There's some more behind the scenes there. And then
Ah,
my podcast is Unbreakable Brands, and you can find that anywhere there are podcasts.
yay.
Yeah,
Yay. Okay. So, oh, unbreakable bands. Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about that.
that's
So,
okay.
yeah, so I'm definitely gonna check you out. I already knew
Thanks.
you had a podcast. I've been scoping you for a while. I'm grateful that you came on the
Thanks.
show today. Y'all,
Yeah.
we are signing out. This is episode number 87 with Truth Be Told Podcast, How to Build a Brand with Bethany McCash. You guys have a good evening.